Ladies and gentlemen, I am addressing you today not as Prime Minister but as an author and as a person deeply interested in the question of languages. I am interested in this question because of its political and also communal aspects. Of far greater importance, however, are the wider cultural aspects of this question. Though I am not a scholar in any language, I have loved the beauty of language, the music of its phrases, and the power that is found in words. I believe that a language is a greater test of a nation's character than almost anything else. If a language is strong and vigorous, so are the people who use it. If it is rather superficial, it reflects the people. It is the people who create the language. But there is some truth also in the language shaping the people. A language which is precise makes the people think precisely. A language which is not open for progressive change may lose touch with the changing surroundings and the masses. This inevitably leads to a loss of strength and growth of a certain artificiality. At any time, this would not be good. But in these days, with almost everything changing around us, the language is bound to improve. The languages of previous ages are totally unsuited to a democratic age where we aim at mass education. A language, therefore, must fulfill two functions. It must base itself on its ancient roots and at the same time change and expand with growing needs and be essentially the language of the mass of people and not of a select set of persons in the society. This is all the more necessary in this age of science and technology and world communication. As far as possible, a language should have common or similar words with other languages, either in regard to scientific or other terms. Therefore, it must be language which is capable of accepting every word from outside that fits into its general structure. Sometimes that word may be slightly changed to suit a particular language. Classical languages have played a very great part in the development of human society. At the same time, they have rather obstructed the growth of popular languages. So long as the learned men thought and wrote in classical languages, there was no real growth of the popular language. In large parts of India, certain outside languages came in the way of the growth of popular languages. In India, we are rightly committed to the growth of our great provincial languages. At the same time, we must have an all India language. This cannot be English or any other foreign language. Although English, both because of its world position and the present widespread knowledge of it in India, is bound to play an important part in our future activities. The only all India language that is possible is Hindi. These are certain basic factors which we must bear in mind in considering this vital question. We must remember that any hasty decision on political pressure or under the influence of any prejudice may well prove harmful. We have to build for the future wider scope of culture. It is better to go slow and avoid every kind of strictness. Language is a very delicate instrument developed in its higher aspects by fine minds and strengthened by the popular use of it. It grows like a flower, and too much external pressure may obstruct that growth or may change it into a wrong direction. It is not very material what we call this language, except for the fact that every word has a history behind it and it gives out something very definite, which limits its meaning. What we must be clear about in our minds is the inner content of the language and the way it looks at the world. That is, whether it is restrictive, self-sufficient and narrow, or whether it is otherwise. I think we must deliberately aim at a language which is the latter and which has a great capacity for growth. The English language, probably more than any other language today, has this capacity for growth. Hence, its great importance as a language. I should like our language to face the world in the same way. I am distressed at the way this question of language is considered and debated in India today. There is little of scholarship behind this argument and less of culture. There is no vision or thought of the future. There is demand from every corner that the all India language should be made as narrow and restricted as possible. Any attempt to expand it is considered a sin. Beauty in a language is often judged from the use of long and complicated words. But in my opinion, language is not just a display of difficult words. Recent attempts to translate well known words from English are fantastic in the extreme. If this is continued, that surely is murder of a fine vehicle for the expression of thought. My dear Gopal, I am in receipt of your letter and noted the contents. If you want to be successful in getting high speed, you should also cultivate the reading habit. You should also attach as much importance to reading practice as to the actual note taking. I would again impress upon you that it is absolutely necessary that you should read your shorthand notes. This is also one of the essential requirements for acquiring high speed. Although reading practice is helpful, transcription is most essential. It is for the errors in the transcript that the shorthand writer is penalized. Therefore, it is quite useless if you do not pay your attention to transcription also. I would say that there is one other method for developing high speed within a very short period. Select 4 or 5 speeches or writings of great men and have them correctly copied in your notebook with the correct outlines and phrases. You should write the same passage over and over again. You should increase the speed gradually until you are able to write that passage at a very high speed. By following this method, your hand moves freely and your mind will not struggle to think of new outlines, and you will be able to maintain a high speed at all times. In my practical experience, I have found that by merely writing 1 or 2 new passages daily in the evening, you cannot expect a rapid improvement in the attainment of high speed, and it is not a real speed practice. Everyone will admit that it is essential to have a regular speed practice. The secret of success in shorthand is only regular practice. I have found some students had repeatedly failed in the examinations because their nerves could not stand the conditions of an examination test. Repetition practice will relieve the difficulties of such students. You should also practice daily by writing matters from newspapers on various subjects. If you do not acquire high speed, you should not be discouraged. It is only a matter of patience and regular practice, and none of these is impossible for you. Yours faithfully.